Border security talks have not progressed through weekend, growing concern deal won't come together. Two of the sources said the talks were ongoing and had not completely fallen apart, but both sides of the talks were considering whether there was a path forward to a broader deal. The outstanding issues, the level of funding for border barriers as well as funding increases for detention facilities and personnel, were not new and have long been the sticking points in the talks. But negotiators, Alabama GOP Sr. Richard Shelby, were. President Donald Trump signed a short-term spending bill last month to on record, putting into place a 3-week stopgap bill that would fund the closed aspects of the government through February 15 without funding his border wall with Mexico. He at the time that bipartisan congressional negotiators would discuss border security and reserved the possibility he would declare a national emergency to build the border wall. That optimism waned through the weekend, and Democratic conferees were expected to meet Sunday morning to discuss next steps as the border negotiations floundered. Two sources involved dispute over ICE beds. A Democratic aide briefed on talks said the discussions broke. Another aide told CNN they would be very. Two senior Republican aides told CNN Sunday morning that negotiations fell apart because the Democratic ask on internal enforcement caps was a non-starter. The cap Democrats wanted was far too low for them, and Republicans argue would force ICE officials to make impossible decisions about which immigrants, including those who might have prior felony records, to detain. The aides said the White House was read in on how and why the talks have stalled. They asked if they were close to finding a compromise on the amount of money for barriers at the southern border. One aide said they were trading. Trump seized on the stall in a pair of tweets on Sunday, saying Democrats were offering it. Differences set in with days remaining before deadline. In addition to Shelby, the Senate Appropriations Committee chairman, other lawmakers, and key officials took to the airwaves over the weekend, where they underscored the differences that remained. Wyoming Republic. Liz Cheney, IM. House Democratic Majority Leader Steny Hoyer told CNN's Ana Cabrera on Saturday that he expected a balanced agreement and would be willing to support a deal that included $2 billion in money for a border barrier. Speaking Sunday on NBC's Meet You.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.